Hi everyone, here's a presentation of my answers to the questions that we had for this week's assignment. So the first question was question 2 on page 21. Some people believe that an act is good because God wills it. From your reading of Euthyphro, what is problematic about this claim? So for my answer to this question, I basically said that the thing that is problematic about this claim is that no one actually knows what God's will is. This is evident in the story that we read of Euthyphro. The two go back and forth about this concept for basically the whole story. Socrates says to Euthyphro, and I quoted from the story, "You say that some of the gods think one thing is just, the others another, and that what some of them hold to be honorable or good, others hold to be dishonorable or evil. For there would not have been quarrels among them if they had not disagreed on these points, would there?" Page 11. So, from this quote in the story, it can be inferred that if the gods agreed on whether some of the acts or any acts are good or honorable or not, how are we really supposed to know what God thinks of an act? Also, relating to that, what people think is good and honorable may be the total opposite in someone else's eyes. The next question was question 4 on page 21. Why is the definition of piety important in the dialogue in life in general? So, basically, for my answer to this question, I said that the definition of piety is important because it kind of creates a moral compass of what is right and what is wrong, or what is just or unjust. Without the true definition of piety, it would be difficult to determine where our certain acts fall, whether they be good or bad, right or wrong, and so on. Connecting this to the dialogue, Euthyphro and Socrates are having this conversation about the definition of piety, and they are ultimately examining this moral compass of where their so-called wrongdoings fall. So for Euthyphro, it would be, is prosecuting his father right or wrong? And for Socrates, the same, if he's being sinful or impious. Of course, the two go back and forth concerning the definition of piety, but at one point, Euthyphro says, "What difference does it make whether the murdered man was a relative or a stranger? The only question that you have to ask is, did the murderer kill justly or not?" Page 9. Here, rather than digging for a deeper answer, Euthyphro is basically just saying that it doesn't matter the circumstance of the situation, whether it's a father, a friend, a family member, or even a stranger. What matters is if it was a right or wrong, or just or unjust. Speaking of this more generally, without the definition of piety, it all seems quite similar. The definition of piety can sort of be looked at as a scale of where our wrongdoings fall. The next question was question 3, exercise 1-1 on page 31. Give 3 reasons why rational approaches generally work better than non rational approaches. I basically said that rational approaches work better than non rational approaches for many reasons, one being that rational approaches are more often than not more formalized thoughts. Rational approaches are most of the time objective information that is presented in a more structural way, which makes it more easily understandable. Secondly, rational approaches usually have knowledge of other possibilities and options. Because of this, rational approaches are more fluid in the sense that other alternatives are offered for thought. Lastly, with rational approaches, things are being tackled with a head on approach. If the approach was non rational, the analysis of the situation or thought could tend to be all over the place and not easily understandable. With rational approach, the bigger picture is there and the contents are analyzed to see what will benefit. The next question was question 2, exercise 1-2, page 31. Bring in 2 different accounts of the same event, which are told from very different cultural perspectives. For this question, I am talking about the very different cultural perspectives when it comes to Roe v. Wade passing, which was in 1973, but how this is still a major debate worldwide today. This decision of Roe v. Wade ruled the Constitution to protect women's liberty and their right to choice when it comes to abortion in their own body. This decision would no longer let the government put restriction on or interfere with a woman's choice on what she wanted to do with the pregnancy. Much of the world was happy about this and celebrated the freedom of a woman's right to choose. On the other hand, multiple religious and cultural groups do not believe abortion is a choice and were angered by the passing of this law. In an article from American United for Separation of Church and State, it explains, quote, "Motivated chiefly by religious zeal, far-right activists and their political allies in Congress and state legislators immediately began working to undermine Roe. Just 3 years after the decision, Congress struck the first blow. passing a law banning the use of Medicaid funds to pay for abortions for poor women. This still remains a huge topic today, and there is still a fight for women's rights over this topic. The divide in the nation concerning this choice makes decisions on this topic difficult for people who have different cultures and upbringings and beliefs. The next question was question 5, exercise 1-2 on page 31. Do you think there are events for which there are no rational explanations? Why or why not? I think every event has a rational explanation, but some may just not have been discovered yet. The best way I can explain this is, for example, the plane that went missing in Malaysia. It's a mystery that doesn't seem to have any rational explanation whatsoever. But maybe that rational explanation just has yet to be discovered. So maybe there is a rational explanation there, and there probably is, but it just hasn't been discovered yet. This can go for so many things in history that we don't have a rational explanation for, but if somebody was here to tell it, there probably would be a rational explanation. So therefore, I think that there is a rational explanation for every event. Therefore, I don't think that there are events for which there are no rational explanation, and if there isn't a rational explanation, it just simply hasn't been discovered yet.